Our top stories this week. In Oregon, a problem with the state's computer system is responsible for them overbilling the federal government for child welfare services by nearly $24 million. In Colorado, the government is asking for $8.2 million to hire 130 new CPS agents, although that's only about one-fifth of what is called for in a workload study that was released earlier in the year. In New Mexico, the state is seeking $10 million to deal with staffing shortages, overwhelming caseloads, and high-profile child abuse cases from the last few years. And in Michigan, the state and the system sucks are sparring over whether or not the child protective industry should continue to be under federal oversight. In Canada, the British Columbia child protective industry now thinks it might be a good idea to involve biological family members in child welfare decisions, while the whole rest of the country tries to figure out how to reform the mess. In Arizona, the child protective industry wants to start attacking families who are living in a homeless camp. And in Colorado, the Child Welfare Department is considering hiring a medical director to oversee the levels of psych meds that they're feeding to foster kids. The U.S. Justice Department has vowed to fight the states that are violating the Indian Child Welfare Act. Australia's only Indigenous judge is horrified by how many Aboriginal children are being snatched from their families these days. And in Canada, the child welfare system is rigged against black families. In Maine, a 20-month-old baby is snatched from his mother and placed with his aunt, whose boyfriend abused him, then was returned back to his mother again. In China, the child protective industry snatches 10 kids from an American foster parent who is still on the run after abuse allegations. In Oklahoma, a foster father pleads no contest to death by child abuse charges. And in Indiana, police are on the hunt for a fake CPS agent. In Arizona, a family is claiming that their children were wrongfully removed after an accident involving a booster seat that was recalled. And the child protective industry closes the case on Charlie Sheen's ex-wife. In Kentucky, a former foster parent who was also a registered sex offender is accused of sexually abusing a child. In Bloomfield, Ontario, a former foster parent has been found guilty of numerous sex-related charges. In West Virginia, a former CPS agent will serve up to 20 years in jail for having sex with a 16-year-old boy. In Minnesota, a foster parent who already served time for raping some kids is charged again when another comes forward. And in Oregon, the court awards $4.1 million to girls who claimed that their foster mother molested them. In California, former foster kids are suing a private agency and the woman who took them in after she was found responsible for severe physical abuse. In Virginia, a homeschooling mother sues the child protective industry after social workers took her kids based on the claim that a diabetic 4-year-old's blood glucose levels were too high. And finally, tonight in Washington, the child protective industry is requesting 100 more CPS agents after years of lawsuits that have cost the state more than $150 million, with the only question remaining, do they even have a clue as to what went wrong? For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.